afternoon newscast with our top focus on Ethiopia, as Ethiopia has said that its troops are now marching to the capital of Tigray region after a deadline for rebel forces to surrender passed. The conflict, which threatens to destabilize the Horn of Africa, has alarmed the whole world. And Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed attended a ceremony in capital Addis Ababa in honor of the National Defense Forces as fighting has now escalated. Elsewhere in the city, residents rallied on the streets to show their support for the army. Residents said that they supported Abiy's decision to send troops to Tigray as it was a matter of the country's sovereignty.
ማንም ጦርነትን የሚደግፍ ሰው አለ ብዬ በዚህ ምድር ላይ አላስብም። ነገር ግን በሉዓላዊነት በአገር ከመጣ ግን ግዴታ ይሆንብሃል። ይሄንን ጦርነት መንግስትም ሆነ የኢትዮጵያ ሕዝብ ዛሬ እንደምታዩ ሕዝቡ ግልብጥ ብሎ የወጣው ጦርነት ወዶ ሳይሆን ይሄንን ካዲና ስግብግብ ጁንታ ከላያችን ላይ ለአንዴና ለመጨረሻ ጊዜ ለማራገፍ ስንል ነው።
Meanwhile, the United Nations has also called for protection of civilians as fighting has sparked a humanitarian crisis.
Our humanitarian colleagues are telling us that they and their partners continue to call for the protection of civilians in Tigray, respect for international humanitarian law, and ways to assess needs and ensure that aid continues to reach areas affected by the conflict. Roads to the Tigray region remain blocked, and our partners warn that supplies will soon be exhausted, putting millions at risk of food insecurity and disease.
Now, thousands of refugees from Tigray continue to flee to neighboring Sudan. According to the UN, at least 4,000 refugees are arriving in Sudan daily.
أنا أخسر والله حواي حفتي يدي هادوم بحر عنيرة حفتي وحمار عنيرة أنا عبد الرافع مسعي جزائر اللي نبرتي اللي بوم دربنا مسعينا.
WION's correspondent Coletta Vanjo is joining us live from Addis Ababa with more details. Let's quickly go across to Coletta. Coletta, rejecting international pleas for de-escalation, now Ethiopia's Prime Minister has promised a final offensive in Tigray. What will the next 48 hours mean for Tigray and Ethiopia?
Well, for the Prime Minister, he announced yesterday on Tuesday that the ultimatum that he had given soldiers from the regional forces to surrender is up. It ended yesterday, so that would denote that the federal forces now will move in with a lot of force, if I may use those words, to be able to occupy the regions or the areas where the regional forces in the north still have. Well, that denotes more force from the government. That denotes probably we shall see the government reporting more military action, and of course that comes with casualties. But for the Tigray people, probably the next 48 hours or so will be a defining moment. Will the regional forces loyal to the political party there be able to defend itself and defend the region and defend its own agenda and its own ideology, or will they succumb to the federal forces? But at the bottom line of this all, it's the civilians. Like you've said, a minimum, we've got an average of about 4,000 Ethiopians fleeing to neighboring Sudan. We've got the ones within there. Now, today we have information that there are about 1,000 U.S. citizens and about 130 European Union citizens stuck in Tigray. Remember, the war caught many people there. So civilians in the middle of it all, but something needs to be done. The government doesn't want dialogue at all.
Right. And speaking of the refugee crisis that you rightly mentioned, Coletta, thousands of refugees from Tigray, of course, continue to flee to neighboring Sudan. The UN has called this a humanitarian crisis. What are the humanitarian concerns at the moment?
Well, basically, two things. Basically, humanitarian agencies are concerned because there is no humanitarian corridor into the Tigray region, where the region is also a host to about 96,000 refugees from Eritrea. So they are not, the humanitarian agencies are not able to go in and provide the much needed support. Then secondly, concern as far as people are fleeing. That means it's going to be a lot of stress for the Sudan government to be able to take care of those who are fleeing, about 4,000 per day. So humanitarian agencies are saying create a corridor, humanitarian corridor, but also beyond the humanitarian corridor, create a lasting solution. And probably this could be what we are seeing the United Nations and other agencies and other countries saying dialogue could be better. With war, there's more humanitarian crisis coming.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of talk about the Horn of Africa being impacted. How is Ethiopia's Tigray crisis impacting the Horn of Africa region, where the US and China both have several strategic military bases, the closest being Djibouti?
Exactly. So Djibouti has a lot of military bases, China, the US, Japan, and so many other countries there. So they have to be on alert because there is always that aspect of having a spillover effect in terms of conflict. But also just immediate next to Ethiopia is Eritrea, where we've seen the TPLF, the ruling party, the ruling coalition, the ruling party in the northern region that is being fought by government, has thrown missiles into Eritrea and said that it will continue hitting Eritrea because they allege that Eritrea is assisting Ethiopia. So that becomes a concern. And of course, for Sudan, the humanitarian aspects and all that. And remember, all these countries that are surrounding Ethiopia still have their own internal conflicts to deal with. They still have their own security issues to deal with. Well, we are now seeing the Deputy Prime Minister of the country moving around the region, Eastern African region, to explain why it is necessary to have this operation. But bottom line, the countries are saying there could be another way other than having the war continuing, because no one knows when the war will end, and the after effects, of course, are obvious.
Absolutely. No one knows when the war will end. We'll keep coming back to you as and when more developments take place. For now, thank you so much, Coletta, for bringing us all those inputs.